on a water bill. And I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
And they were like, I said, I haven't even had it on hardly. And then they went back and they said, the sun's
the land more and more and more. Our imagination just grew and grew and grew, but we wanted to be able to share it beyond just ourselves.
Margaret said we ought to do something where we really could preserve some land for future generations, and that really lit both our fires, and that's what's brought us to where we are today.
And so we came up with the idea of having a much greater percentage of open space. And so we've agreed to go 70% open space. And so with agriculture, food sourcing, health and wellness, we can also open our trails to the public to come out on a regular basis, and we'll have education. And then we want to build a small inn of 35 rooms, which we can have for meetings, farm to table wrestling. elements of the rural character of this property is important to me. The rural character is guaranteed by us having 70% open space. And so that's something that we take with real pride. It doesn't matter whether we're tempted to change away from that later, we can't change away from that later.
I don't know where else in our vicinity children can come and enjoy this, and adults can come and enjoy it.
I think everybody, when they come into this world, hope they're gonna leave it a better place than they found. And so that Margaret and I can both go out and say, this was one of the most fun projects we've ever done in our life.
To be able to create a place where people can come and learn in a very different way, and live in a more intentional, educational way. It's a wonderful vision that we are blessed to be able to define.
Thank you for indulging us. I think in 3 minutes we did that faster than Randy and I could have been several, so we thought that was the way to go.
You just got on the screen share.
Of course I did, sorry. I did get a report from my associate that the audio was a little rough for those remote, but they were able to see the video and hear most of it. Sorry.
It's okay. Can you see my screen again?
Nope, go down there with the Zoom, the little camera. And then up at up at the top. What does that say?
You can see
It says you are screen sharing. Ingrid.
Okay. So then share your screen, sister.
Okay, sorry, I was just trying to find our document again.
Okay.
This is it.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't the one.
Okay, the next one.
I'm afraid to touch anything.
Here.
Okay, great. So I went through our introduction, so you're aware with who our team is. Property location, I think you all know very well. Here we are, Providence Road, Innis Road at that location. There's a star on the site. This is a survey of the property. Here are the parcels that are within, currently within the boundaries of the town of Weddington. This is a look at your current zoning map. So the RCD zoning district is shown in green. The parcels that we're dealing with tonight are currently zoned RCD. And so it takes us to a couple of things I wanted to talk with you about tonight. One thing we've been looking at, we hosted 3 community meetings, 2 virtual, 1 in person last Friday, have gotten a good amount of feedback. We've got a lot of support. We've also heard from folks that have concerns about the project and expressed a variety of different opinions. And so what we want to spend a little time with you tonight is really just kind of going through your land use plan and showing you some places that we took some items. So if you, and I'm sure you all are familiar, land use plan, I think updated through August of 2019, laid out a couple goals. And the number 1 goal laid out in the land use plan was to ensure that all new development takes place in a manner that conserves open space and scenic views. So goal number 1, open space, preservation of scenic views. Goal number 4 was to maintain the town's strong single-family residential character. We see that a lot when we look through the Weddington plans, single-family residential character. Number 5, to retain a mix of land uses that reinforces Weddington's unique small-town character. And this one I put up there, this is very interesting. Goal number 7, through the conditional rezoning process, which is the process that we're using, provide varying lot sizes to accommodate a variety of age and income groups and broader residential options so that the community's population diversity may be enhanced. So I thought that was really interesting as we went through the ordinance to see these goals of Weddington together. And sometimes it's hard to do things like goal number 7, to provide diversity so that we can have a variety of age and income at the same time the single family character. So that can be a challenge, but those are some goals that you all set out. Next up in the land use plan, there were a number of policies, and these were the policies that you adopted to implement those goals. Policy number 1 reflects goal number 1, preserve open space and scenic views. Through appropriate zoning regulations, require open space preservation in both conventional and conservation subdivisions and commercial developments. So again, number 1, that open space, and not just open space, I thought that scenic views was interesting. So, and when I think of scenic, it's so people can see it, really making it accessible. And so that's one of the things we're really trying to do with our plan. Number 2, preserve the town's resources. Depending upon the fragility of the resource, restrictions should limit or prohibit construction, grading, even vegetative clearing. So this policy goal is saying, hey, in some areas we have areas that are very sensitive, and so let's be extra careful with those. Let's try to keep construction grading out of there entirely. Number 6, again, we see retain the character of the community by ensuring that new residential development consists of single-family homes. So that your residential is single-family. To me, that means no multifamily. Now that can be challenging. Remember with the goal from the first slide that said, well, we'd like a little bit more diversity of income and age, but that challenge is put out there, and I think what we're showing is a way that we think we can meet it. Policy number 13, and this is important, is we'll talk about density on the site. And we've had a lot of conversations with folks saying, well, the number of units is too many. Why are you after that number? So we wanted to go back to this. Again, this is the adopted land use policy, is to allow alternative smaller lots to retain open space while maintaining a density of 1 dwelling unit per acre. And what you'll find is we essentially took our acreage, we divided by 40,000, we came up with 233 units, and that's what we proposed. So I wanted you to know that's where this came from. In our initial, we reviewed your ordinance, 1 per 40,000. Now I'll go ahead and say now, you may look at this in the town of Weddington, we found there are a lot of legitimate real estate experts. I've run into several home builders who know land development much better than I do. And many of them have said, yeah, but with 40,000 square foot lots, you could never get 233 units out there. And we acknowledge that. I think that was the goal as we look through the town's plans, is to provide some more innovation. So I did want to say from the outset that is how we got there. Again, looking at the land use plan, which says allow smaller lots, retain open space, maintaining a density of 1 dwelling unit per 40,000. So that's where our number came from, working from that. Then that gets, so those are just kind of wanted to put out for you. Those are the goals that Weddington set forth. Here are the policies, the way to get there. And so as we looked at those, we've gone forward. The conservation residential current zoning that we're in is, again, this residential conservation district. That applies to areas in the town that are 6 acres or greater. Some of that has not been developed. And it says conventional subdivisions shall have minimum lot sizes of 40,000 square feet, plus be subject to a 10% open space requirement. Conservation subdivisions shall be subject to a conditional zoning permit and allow for smaller lot sizes, yet retain a density of approximately 1 dwelling unit per 40,000 square feet. That is to do a residential conservation subdivision, which is not what we're doing. We're doing something more innovative. But I did want you to see when we look at the plan, it does call for that density of 1 dwelling unit per 40,000 square feet. That is if you were doing a conservation subdivision. Again, we are not. We're proposing something different. And so what we're proposing is Roots Farm. We're proposing an agri-hood. And so I think we understood the Roots Farm vision. We came and spent a lot of time looking at your ordinance, looking at your land use plan, and trying to figure out how to make this fit. And so the things we saw in your ordinance is there's already a provision for agritourism. And I'll go through that definition in a bit, but that was something the town recognized. So there was the ability and the desire, I think, we saw it in the Union County ordinances too, is to bring people in, to show them farming, try to bring others from outside the community in to enjoy that. So our goal was, well, how do we have that, and how do we combine that with other things, really to have a comprehensive integrated project where, and so our goal is Roots Farm, an agri-centric community where residents and visitors have convenient access to interconnected clustering of agricultural, agritourism, agribusiness, and residential uses with respect to and sensitivity to the agricultural and rural character of the land and adjacent farm operations and agricultural heritage. So when we saw the ordinance, yes, in the RCD, it does permit agritourism. It also allows single-family development, mostly the conservation subdivisions. And so we did not see a way to really integrate all of these things. And so to do that, we proposed some modifications to the ordinance to allow that. So we are looking at a two-step process. You've got two separate agenda items. As Lisa mentioned, we're kind of talking about them together. But step one is a text amendment to set the framework for an agri-hood under the ordinance. And step two was then, if you decide to approve that and allow this thing called an agri-hood, that doesn't mean that anyone can just come out and build one. If you qualify to be an agri-hood, the only way then to actually develop one is to have a conditional zoning, a site-specific rezoning approval, 2 steps. So we're also looking at step 2. So 1, you establish the framework. 2, you look at it on a case-by-case basis to determine if the proposal warrants approval, and then you may approve that. So starting with the text amendment, again, setting the framework, we proposed amending the current ordinance to permit, it's really the integration of single-family residential, the agricultural use, which we hope to will continue going on, agritourism, which in our case is really the rural inn, and then agribusinesses within the agri-hood. So everything is there together. The agri-hood then would be a development designed with clustering. So you cluster the single-family residential, the agriculture, the agritourism on a working farm within the development, and all of those things work together. Standards for the agri-hood. So this definition that we've proposed creating, this new word agri-hood, which is all of these things combined. To be an agri-hood, you have to have a minimum of 200 acres. 2, as we talked about and saw from the land use plan, has the same language, 1 dwelling unit per 40,000 square feet, permitting the clustering of homes on a single parcel to maximum open space. That language is not in your land use plan. You know, there's language about smaller lots. The way we're proposing to do it is actually keep it on 1 lot. And then our goal is to allow a private network of streets, including farm roads, to minimize the impervious areas, to promote natural areas. You all know what a typical subdivision looks like in Weddington. Conservation subdivisions do, even though they have a good amount of open space. Usually that open space is not necessarily publicly accessible or publicly usable, even for the residents of the development. And also, you know what typical subdivision streets look like. So in our plan, the goal is, again, to cluster the development areas, frankly, as closely as we can to preserve most of the site, and then give us some flexibility to design these roads as farm roads to serve this community for generations. And so we don't have as much asphalt. We don't have as much stormwater runoff. And then again, the standard for the agri-hood would be a minimum of 70% open space. This would be the text amendment to your ordinance to say for anyone to qualify to even come show you a site-specific zoning plan, they would have to meet these conditions. Those are some of them. So that's the proposed text amendment to create the agri-hood definition. The proposed text amendment, really the agri-hood, what we're saying is promotes agricultural-related tourism and businesses and the benefits that provide to the community. So again, I want to point out to you, if you open your ordinance today, you will find agritourism. It is there. It is permitted already as a conditional use within our zoning district. And it's a really broad definition. It's about 3 lines and essentially defined to include kind of any agricultural, horticulture, agribusiness operation primarily devoted to the promotion of tourism for the purpose of enjoyment. So we read that and said, well, arguably, you know, now the current zoning and the current definition would allow someone to develop an inn. It would allow someone to have the market barn that we're talking about. In fact, as we talked with Lisa about it, we said, why is it pretty wide open? It allows a lot of things. So if we're coming in and we're amending it, one of the things we might want to do is tailor that a little bit more narrowly so that, you know, someone doesn't have free reign to do all those things. Now, all those are open currently to interpretation, will be interpreted by your zoning administrator. So one of the things we did was we took your agricultural tourism definition, we beefed it up a little. I don't think we were pushing the envelope of saying, let us do more. We actually tailored it a little more finely and tried to detail, and we're happy to continuing this discussion. You know, some of these terms currently are very broad, very vague. I think we've brought it in a little bit. We'd be happy to do that more. But we've added detail to clearly indicate the types of uses that would be permitted, including rural retreats. We know what we want to do. We've proposed our inn, so we want to make sure that fits. We know we'll have some farm-to-table restaurants. That's what we like to do, so we want to make those fit. And we're happy to continue working with you as we're fashioning this ordinance because it is your ordinance. That definition will apply going on in the future to make sure it's narrowly tailored. we certainly do not want with our market barn. We're not looking for retail. You know, we're not looking for folks that are going to go down the street and buy a gallon of milk or a quart of oil. The purpose of the agri-hood is that all of the, if we have retail uses on the site, they're related to the agri-hood. They're somehow related to what is produced on the site, being taught on the site. It doesn't mean that every item in the farm to table restaurant is grown on the farm. We certainly think that some will be. But we do think, and we're happy to tailoring this definition narrowly enough so that we're not opening Pandora's box. None of you and none of us want competition to your commercial center on Providence Road. You know, we have in our mind what Roots Farm is. It is not somewhere where you're just coming to do your retail shopping. It is a really kind of curated experience, and everything that happens on the site we want related to the other things going on the site. So we're happy to continue discussing with you all that definition, what's allowed going forward. So again, we added the agribusinesses uses to permit commercial activity. So we will have some activity on our site that supports the production of agricultural products or processing those products to make them marketable, including artisan shops. Our team has really learned a lot about production. Mr. Bissell's meeting now all sorts of specialty farmers that come in and do really innovative things. So this isn't, you know, the commercial farming where we have combines that are, you know, producing 100-acre fields of a you know, single crop. We've got a lot of unique and innovative things going on, and a lot of farmers that are excited to do it. And their greatest challenge, they're good at farming. They're good at planting and growing and producing. The challenge for a lot of these folks we're learning is marketing it. You know, where do they go? Do they haul it to the farmer's market down there? That's their challenge. So one of the things the Roots team knew they needed to be able to do was for this to really work, they needed to have an opportunity on site. So that's the goal of the market barn. So we'll have those, and everything again on the site needs to be related to the overall agri-hood. So that's the proposed text amendment. Then, again, that's just setting the framework. If, you know, a development team, if you have a project that has 200 acres, 70% open spaces meeting those, then they can come to you with a conditional rezoning, which we have also submitted. So if you meet the requirements of an agri-hood, that doesn't mean you can go out and build it. That means you then come to the town with a conditional rezoning plan, which is a site-specific plan like the one that we'll show you. And that is, this is a legislative process, and you can negotiate with the development team through that process to talk about conditions. We'll show you what we've proposed. You can ask us to do other things. I mean, you can ask us to build a Ferris wheel. In a conditional process, you can't make the developer do things, but you can ask, and if the developer agrees, we can add those conditions. So we'll also have our conditional rezoning. You've probably seen we have a bubble plan. It's a bigger picture plan, really breaking down the site in certain areas where you have the natural areas. We have the agricultural areas where the farming and production will continue. We have the agritourism and agribusiness areas. That's really where our inn and market barns are. And then you have the residential villages. So that's what you see on our bubble plan. And one of the reasons we're doing the bubble plan, I do a lot of work for development teams. I represent a lot of national home builders. I'm not saying anything negative about them, but when my teams lay out a residential single-family subdivision, they know exactly what it's going to look like. They know what the homes look like. They know what the grading plan looks like. And a lot of times they come in and flatten the areas they're going to build. And so we don't have to worry. We know where the plan is going to be. Where we are now, and Mr. Bissell and Randy will talk about this a lot, is kind of letting the land dictate the plan. And so there are areas on the site where we do, and we'll talk about, Jeff's team talks about, where you might site a home made it dependent on the topography that's there, trying to leave it there, to build around it, not mass grading things, leaving a stand of trees. So one of the goals of having the bubble plan was really to provide flexibility in some of those areas. We've heard feedback from some of the community that said, okay, we hear that, but we need a little bit more detail. And there are some areas that we know a lot about. And I'll show you a picture of the inn. We've got a very refined design of that. We can tell you, well, that's exactly where that's going to go. That's exactly where the market barn is going to go. So I think as we continue, hopefully through this process, we'll continue getting feedback from you all. We will submit then a revised plan that address some of your concerns. And I think as we go forward, you'll see our plans tighten up a little bit so we can provide some more information. Also, our rezoning plan, we've got set out some written development standards and then really some architectural standards. And I'm going to walk you through those. So we've talked about having flexibility, but we're not looking for complete flexibility, nor do we think that you would accept that. And so a lot of what, when I go through this process, folks really want to know, well, what's it going to look like? And so what we set out as part of our rezoning plan is we've set out architectural standards by different uses. So we've got physical standards for building and site design, so it's got a unified development, so this looks cohesive like an agri-hood. So the architect that is working on the inn is the architect that's working on the market barn and is also influencing the residential production. So all this looks right together. And we're happy to make those commitments. That's one of the pleasures of working with this team. The goal is not to cut corners. The goal is to achieve a vision. And so when it comes to quality, we've got no pushback from it. In fact, I typically, in my role, want my clients to have as much flexibility as possible. And nothing scares me more than showing you all a picture of what the building is going to look like. But the Roots team is far enough along with its main buildings like the inn, if they're comfortable showing you exactly what it would look like. So there's no mystery in those items. Okay, so that's what our conditional rezoning plan is all about. This is the bubble diagram that I mentioned. So you can see here the different areas. The dark green are the natural areas, the open space areas where there would not be development. We are showing a trail network. The brown lines you can see in there are about 7 miles of trails. The goal is that those are open to the public. Now, I will say our zoning does allow within the natural areas, you can continue to have agricultural uses, so those could be permitted. And then we also, and our team is on, we have a pretty innovative wastewater system that can be in those areas, as well as some of the energy efficient features, like maybe solar can be in those areas, but there would not be development per se in those areas. Then in the lighter green, and we could change its color, we should probably do that to show the purely agricultural areas here, here, and here. And then we have the agricultural plus agritourism. So the agritourism being the rural retreat or inn in this location, as well as the market barn in that location. And if we need to add another color to separate that, I think we can do it. The next piece that we've shown in our community meetings has been a conceptual plan. So within the frameworks that we've laid out here, so if you quickly look at this map, you can really tell, okay, here's the residential, here's the agricultural, here's the open space. To put a little bit more meat on the bone so people can really follow as we talk, we said, well, this is a conceptual plan of what things could look like in those areas. So again, you see the dark green, that is the open space where there's really no development occurring. You can see the agricultural areas, those match up with the bubbles on the plan. And then we can, because we're getting further along, probably provide some more detail in our plans of showing this would be the rural retreat or inn at this location. This is our production barn, which is the agricultural barn. There are tractors and fertilizer that needs to be on the site. And this here would be the location of the market barn. This here is the existing home that is on site, has been restored. So if you're out there, you then have a sense of where things lay out. You'll see protecting a real view corridor along Providence Road. If you know where that existing home is, we don't have any new buildings, until further back than that. So that's our conceptual plan. Now, what we said in all of our meetings is just because you see a house at this location does not mean that we will have a house at that location. We wanted to give everyone an idea of how this lays out, but the real reason for our bubble plan, especially in these areas where we're not as far along in design, this is where we like the flexibility. So if there is a hill or a knoll or a stand of trees, the development team could move some lots over, switch a drive location, but nothing moves outside the areas indicated on the bubble plan. So that's our conceptual plan. Then we have some written development standards. I won't go through all those because they're quite extensive. But on the natural areas, our commitments within those areas is we'll have 70% of the site open space. You say, what does that mean? So we've laid out, well, what are the permitted uses are restricted to include the natural area, pasture land, forest land, agricultural, neighborhood uses such as trails and greens, non-commercial recreational areas. So you could have a play field or a field, but not for commercial activity, water and wastewater treatment facilities. And we are going to have some limitation on utilities, but we would like the ability to have some solar on the site. So that is what is allowed in that 70% open space. What really, I think, sets Roots Farm apart, and we're going to have to walk this line and talk with you all about it, is we said over, and you heard Ms. Bissell say in the video, The idea is this is accessible to the public, not just for the folks that live at Roots Farm, but the folks in Weddington come out here, walk, enjoy the site. We're going to have to walk that line and decide what that means. But certainly that doesn't mean we don't want everyone coming in, and no one's coming in and riding their ATVs on this. So we do need to craft language that's comfortable there, so that we want to welcome the public in, but we also need the ability to regulate this. This cannot be wide open. And I'll explain that too, as we have residents on the site. And then next to a recorded instrument, we're working on this, the rezoning plan. Folks are saying, well, what assures us that in the future, this always stays 70% open space? One is that we are committing to a conditional zoning plan. So we think in many ways, that's better than just a private document, because the town can govern that. Now, if this town council changed in 20 years and said, well, we'll give you zoning to allow that to be used, that's the question that's coming to us. Can you give us another layer of protection? So we're working on that now. Understanding that when you get a single family subdivision, the developer comes up, chops that up into lots, creates an HOA to oversee that. So understanding the feedback that we're getting is that some stakeholders of the town would like another layer that would protect that. And so we're evaluating our options for doing that. So we've heard that feedback, and we will continue to work on it. Okay, that was development standards for the natural areas, development standards for the residential areas. In accordance to the land use plan, again, we're showing we calculated one single family dwelling unit per 40,000 square feet in aggregate. That came out to 233 units. We've definitely gotten feedback with folks that have said, yeah, but if you were really doing a residential conservation subdivision, you wouldn't get that many units, so you shouldn't do that many units. That is the way that we looked at it, so that's where we are. Others have said, well, you're also double counting. You know, you counted all your acreage and then you put an N there and a market barn there. So our team is looking at that. So we've gotten that feedback. We'll continue to look at it. Next up on development standards, we have architectural standards for building materials, windows, roof pitches, so that these homes, not everyone is designed, and this is not a production builder, that has 7 models they're going to build. These are more custom developed for the site, but we do have some standards. And we're saying mainly 2, 3, and 4 bedroom homes. We don't have square footages in our zoning documents now. We can refine that if we need to, but the range being from about 900 square feet up to 3,500 square feet. So I don't think there's anything you can find in Weddington at 900 square feet. And most of the new homes, that I've seen over the years, Weddington homes are Weddington homes. They're large homes, 5,500 square feet, 5 bedrooms. Recall back to your goals over here was to provide a little more housing diversity. So that is our goal, is to provide homes that aren't that large. And I think that goes a little bit to the first question where we said, we're proposing 233 homes. People are definitely going to say, hey, if you did that as a conservation subdivision, you'd never get 233 homes. Well, I would say to that also, our homes are not apples to apples comparable. They're not a 5,000 square foot home. They're not as large. They don't have as much impervious area. They won't have as many residents, which won't generate as many trips, and certainly won't have the same impact on the schools. So I think though we may have more units than someone could eke out under a by right plan, we think our units are not as impactful. And so again, even with the units we have, that is still at 1 per 40,000. So I don't think we came in shooting for the moon or trying to squeeze everything out of this property we could get. We looked at the standard, and that's what we used going forward. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We've got commitments on height. So one story could be 14 feet. Your ordinance measures height to the eave, so that doesn't count the roof over that. So our 1 story is at 14 feet, our 2 stories at 26 feet of building height. Front porches are encouraged. That's really, if you hear Jeff talk about what he sees, these are clustered together. They are. It's not your typical wedding neighborhood where they're on large lots and spread out further. They're clustered together. The goal of that is more of a walking neighborhood. There's more of a community. If you don't like your neighbors next door, and we've heard from some people that do not, this would not be for you. This is for folks that are looking for that want to sit out on their porch at night and talk to their neighbors. So that's what we're going for, to offer that. We think something different. And then also parking through garages designated off-road, but certainly not. We talk a lot about kind of front-loaded garages. That is not at all the image here. So those are residential development standards that are written. In addition, we've got some images showing the concepts. Then Jeff has kind of laid out. This is all, you know, we read your ordinance. You're trying to maintain the character, the small town feel. So we really got some kind of influence, architecture that is common throughout the Southeast, this part of North and South Carolina, your Tidewater cottage style, your Creole cottage, your Southern farmhouse, Southern antebellum, Southern vernacular, Southern farmhouse. And the architecture team has put together language, so we don't think we'll have a picture of every home, but we will have some development standards that when one of these are built, they've got to comply. They've got to have the peaked roofs. They've got to have the elements the design team has laid out. And we're happy to continue conversations with you all if you have questions about those. Development standards for the agritourism and agribusiness areas. And again, we think under your current ordinance, you have an agritourism definition. And so we think a lot of these are allowed under the current zoning. I don't know that we need to amend your zoning to allow this, but what we're proposing, but anyone that was doing agritourism, they would still have to get a conditional approval from you all. And so this is what we're doing. Now our total, which we're showing now, is not to exceed 79,000 square feet of the agritourism agribusiness uses. The bulk of that, as you'll see in a moment, is the inn. That's about 50,000 up, so that's most of it. Then we'll also have architectural standards for all design. I'll show you some of those, very detailed on the Market Barn and Inn, which you seem to be of greatest interest. Designed to encourage pedestrian scale field connectivity with residential. This isn't a shopping center plopped out. It is not designed to draw people in. It is designed to serve the neighborhood and be an amenity. Then we have no development within a 50-foot view corridor along Providence Road. I showed you that setback earlier. So that's the general development standards for the agritourism and agribusiness. The inn itself would be limited at 35 rooms and up to 50,000 square feet. And I mean, the Bissell Company knows a good bit about hospitality, how to make money on inns. This is not the plan you would put forth if you were trying to make money in hospitality. This is designed that you create to be part of a larger picture. So a 35 room inn is what's proposed, limit of 2 stories. So this is not a great big, and I'll show you some detailed elevations in a minute. Maximum height of 35 feet, or that's to the eave, because that's how your ordinance looks at it, but I'll show you all of it. Really 2 structures in the inn, the way it's designed. One structure would contain the public spaces, such as the dining areas, the farm to table restaurant, conference and meeting rooms, kitchen storage areas, as long as the management office and outdoor dining in one building. The other building would have the private rooms and a small fitness center. Structures will be joined by a 1-story connector that's also the main entrance. Board and batten style design for tall vertical windows. This is the rendering, and the Roots team is comfortable. We submitted this as part of our rezoning. So if you approve this, you know exactly what it would look like. These are the 2 buildings. This is an aerial image showing here. And then this is a look, just kind of another plan view looking down on the site. So those are kind of illustrative. But dialing in, Jeff's got his design pretty well drawn, so we can tell you exactly what it looks like from what elevation. And then there were questions, well, what does this look like? We did get questions, and we looked at the land use plan, and it says rural character and needs to blend in. So we said, well, what does it look like versus other things in the community? So we did just a quick massing comparison so that you could see. This is the Weddington United Methodist Church Family Center. It's the side view if you come in off Providence. So that shows you, I think that's at 40 feet to the peak. Ours, I think, was 44 to the top. So very similar in height and the mass of those buildings. Bulk of ours also lower than that. And, there are other views of the church that you can make it look bigger, but we thought that compared fairly well. The way this will be set back, kind of lower down, we don't think that's imposing at all. And that's been the design. Okay, that takes us into the Market Barn. We've got a maximum height of 18 feet, again, to the eave, shed type porches that would run the length of the facade. Again, board and batten facades, full height storefront windows, exposed framing members with painted metal, and a look at that. And I think Jeff would tell me this is actually the production barn where the tractors and the working implements are stored. This is a look at the Market Barn, where again, you could have I think we're talking about having a post office for the residents there, could be a farm table restaurant. This is where, the folks, the mushroom man who's growing there can have his stall where he sells mushrooms. Those are conceptual elevations. So not a lot of mystery in that. That'd be part of our zoning. We'd commit to it. Talking about anticipated community impacts. One thing we've heard from the neighbors is, and we got a lot of feedback of, especially from folks that live right near the site. Well, I don't want this to negatively impact my quality of life. I don't want to have offensive uses. And one of the things we think that's good about Roots Farm is, if you remember, there's the residential development on the site. That's an important component of the site. So very important to the Roots team that we can't have noxious uses in our farming community. And one of the neighbors asked, well, I've read up on this, and when you have orchards, peach orchards, the farmers will have sound cannons to scare away the birds. And I don't want to hear that. Certainly, we cannot have sound cannons amongst our residential development. So in a lot of ways, the fact that there is a single family residential component of that keeps a lot of our interests aligned with ministries in the community to make sure that the rural retreat and the market barns, that they're an amenity. So that is our idea. They're an amenity to the residents there. They're an amenity to Weddington. And because we have our residential uses out there, our interests are aligned, and we're going to ensure that those don't negatively impact residents. We're currently showing a 100-foot buffer along the property line. We talked a lot with the folks at the Gardens of Providence about that. We've got 100 feet shown there. We think that's more than a single family builder would be required to have. We're actually looking at that a little further. It does appear that we've got some topography that we're actually going to be further away than that. So we're looking at, as our next turn of plans, we're going to provide as much there as we can provide. Anticipated impacts from stormwater. We've heard from different communities about stormwater. Our team has really looked at which basins we're flowing to, but wanted to point out that we think we're mitigating as much as possible by reducing as much grading as possible. Having fewer impervious areas is hopefully not generating as much stormwater. We also have a private, innovative, self-contained wastewater treatment facility, something that a lot of folks on this team have spent a lot of time designing and engineering. And then, of course, we'd love to use renewable energy sources throughout the agri-hood, including solar and geothermal. That's why in our development standards, you've seen us give ourselves some flexibility to have solar in the open space if necessary. Also, just trying to think through what we've heard from the community. A lot of talk about anybody who drives on Providence Road hears about traffic. Our TI is underway. We're expecting that in January for review and for approval. We've proposed a new signal at the intersection of Providence and Ennis with left turn lanes. And generally, everybody that's heard that has reacted positively, that'll be a benefit to the broader community. So we're hoping that's approved, and that'll address many of those concerns. Really emphasizing the preservation, nurturing the existing tree canopy. If you've been out to the site, you see there's some clearing been done, but it's all by hand. I've never heard of hand clearing a couple hundred acres of land before, but that's the way it was done out here to open it up so that it's usable open space. I know that we've heard, well, if you develop in Weddington, you've always got to have, most people have 50% open space, but the difference in Roots is the type of open space. It's really usable, that we want our residents and the public to come in and enjoy it, to see it, to enjoy and experience those scenic views that y'all talked about. Also, the educational opportunities to open up the spaces so that people, residents, students can see a closer connection to nature, food, the community. That's one of the goals we're hoping of the old farmhouse there, to restore that so that can be open to the public and have students. We walked it the other day. It's just really a neat building. And Jeff gives a lot of architectural tips on how it was so energy efficient 100 years ago. They knew things that we didn't know before we invented HVAC systems. And then really the thrust of this is the open space that's open to the community. And so kind of bringing this back to where we started, as we look at our plan in the context of the town's goals. So again, if you look at your land use plan, you've laid out goals. We think that this really preserves, again, your number one goal was open space, scenic views. Environmentally sensitive land enables the residents of the community to engage with the benefit from such areas while promoting non-residential uses that are consistent with Weddington's priorities. And again, you can see your ordinance. You already are providing for agritourism, and the only non-residential uses we're proposing are those agritourism uses. We think it supports Weddington's emphasis on single-family residential character. That's the residential that we're approving, pretty innovative. But everything is a single-family home. Would accommodate the variety of age and income groups, which is one of your goals, by providing a unique and innovative residential option in Weddington. And again, promoting a mix of uses that reinforces what we saw your goal again being the small town character and agricultural heritage. So I think if you read some of your goals and policies with what we're proposing, we think those mesh together pretty nicely. I've talked for a long time. Our timeline, which y'all are familiar with, we've done 3 public involvement meetings. We've done some additional ones. If the neighborhood or if anyone can hear me, if you are an adjacent resident or an HOA, we're happy to convene our team so that we've got the right folks to answer your questions, and look forward to proceeding. That said, I'll turn it over to Randy or Mr. Bissell. Mr. Bissell, if there's anything you would like to add before we, I guess, take questions from the board, or Lisa makes her presentation.
Excuse me. Do you like, should I go over there? Can I stay right here?
Wherever you're comfortable.
I just like to say that it is an honor for Margaret and I to be landowners out here in Weddington. We have thoroughly enjoyed it, and we really, we've only been married 10 years. My first wife was passed away of cancer at 49 and a half years. She had been head of the largest day school in Charlotte for 17 years, been there 33 years. She was 7 years in the public school system. And we started off talking about, she sort of said, well, you know, we really would wish you could have left more common space in Valentine. I said, well, Margaret, it's 13 and a half miles of, you know, trails and sidewalks and so on and so forth. She said, no, I mean, green area. And we got talking about Central Park as being the absolute best piece of property in America. It influenced everybody in the city, everybody who comes there. And so we got talking about that size, which is 700 plus acres. And so we said, well, we don't have that. We can't get that much here, but we can do something like that. And I think I told the story. I went down and talked to the gentleman at the tax office and told them, you know, we wanted to do something and we were going to try and put it into a 501c3. And they said, well, bring us $400,000 the day you do it, because you can't have agriculture in a 501c3. And so we decided that didn't work very well. And so we came up with the only way we could do it. We had to have it self-supporting, because New York, I guess, supports, you know, the Central Park. And for, you know, that to be an obligation here would be beyond, I would assume, any obligations that anyone wants to take on. So what we're trying to do is make this viable so that there is an income source that preserves that open space. And I think we've done a pretty good job. We've got a great team together. And, you know, we look forward to hearing your questions and trying to see if we can't make this work. But the infrastructure cost is huge. We're $7.7 million for just the treatment and the distribution system, not the hookup to the houses. And so that's a lot larger than we ever, you know, expected to run into, but we got to do it right. So thank you, and we look forward to questions.
Mouse.
Oh, sorry.
All right, I'll be quick. So tonight before us, we have a text amendment. It's to section 58-4 definitions. This is designed to define agribusiness, agri-food, and redefine agritourism, and to add a renewable energy facility. Their plan is to bring this through under single ownership, so they are not subject or required to meet our subdivision ordinance regulations. Rather, they are amending our 58-58 residential conservation district, which is within our zoning ordinance. They're proposing to add newly defined terms of conditional uses in the RCD zoning district, which in Weddington goes through a conditional zoning process. And as you know, with conditional zoning, there's no specific set of ordinance standards that can be predetermined. Through the rezoning process, we are establishing the standards that are site specific. It allows flexibility for new ideas like this, while also protecting nearby residents. In addition to the text, they're also applying for conditional rezoning. When you're considering rezoning like this, I would like to usually take a look around at the surrounding uses. So the property owned by Ruth's Farm is highlighted in red. You've got the Garden Zone Providence to the north, which is an RCD subdivision. You have Drayton Hall within the county. You have the agricultural pieces of Rich Farm to the west. You have Oldenburg, which is similar density to what is being proposed tonight at 1.08 units per acre. We've got Weddington and Pink below to the south. And then the Meadows at Weddington. And then you have Misty Meadows, the horse farm to the east. So when you're looking at surrounding property uses, we also have the county, and it's the residential in the county. However, their land use plan calls out for mixed use and high density residential. So I think there'd be a good transition between the county piece, what's proposed here, the farm, and then the zoning surrounding. Typically, when you have a conditional zoning, I would suggest you compare it to a similar use district. So which in this case, we would compare the residential area to an RCD conservation subdivision, and we'll compare the non-residential portions to our NX conditional district. By the end of this, I hope you have a plus minus chart with the advantages and disadvantages. So for more density, we have more open space. We have larger buffers, we have the energy efficiency, we have the trail system, so we should be able to make that plus minus decision for conditional zoning. I've generally listed some of the requests and the comparisons with our ordinances in the staff report. I'd be happy to break that down further as we go along throughout this process. Since this is conditional, they have their site-specific development standards that we've went through tonight. It goes through landscaping, buffers, lighting, noise, parking, that's all included in the packet. As far as process, they held their 2 public involvement meetings, or 3 public involvement meetings, and a list of the concerns heard from those meetings is listed in your staff report. Per section 58, 270 and 271, that's our text amendment process and our conditional zoning process. You guys have 30 days to review and to make a recommendation to the town council. You shall not vote if you have a direct, substantial, or readily identifiable financial impact. And in addition, we'll have to make a statement of land use plan consistency to our comprehensive plan. I have been asked if we need to change our land use plan to be able to make tonight's decision. The plan is advisory only. You can make a rezoning decision that is contrary to the plan. The statute just requires you to be aware of the advice and the analysis included in the plan when making your decision and list the reasons why you made the decision that you have. So there is an example land use plan consistency statement in both the text amendment staff report and the conditional zoning staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Obviously, this is much larger than what we deal with on a regular basis. This is much more comprehensive. A lot of issues, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. So with that, Colin made a couple of notes earlier about their staff was looking on that, changing a couple different things. And my notes here are extensive, but in any case, what is staff and what is the applicant asking us to do tonight? Are they asking for, it seemed to me they had a lot of things that aren't specific at this point. Are they asking for us to give indications? Or are you guys looking for a vote tonight?
We're hoping to get through all the questions so we can make the changes and make them definitive prior to your next meeting, prior to the recommendation. So if we can get through the list of questions and concerns tonight, maybe not have a response or an answer to all of them,
Okay.
I think that's the next goal.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, what we're trying to do is get the questions out of the way. We're going to table this meeting, take up another meeting January 20th or whatever the number is. The applicant will come back and give us information at that point. And at that point, then we can make an up or down vote based on that information.
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're trying to do. Okay.
Based on your procedure, This is a big and complex.
No, yeah, exactly, okay.
We just got our community meetings done last week, so we expect that if that schedule worked for you, we could then
Okay.
resubmit a new plan addressing hopefully many concerns.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just want to be sure we're clear with that. I know we have some people on Zoom that are not really familiar with these particular meetings. We'll make sure we state that out there. One other thing I want to be sure that we communicate, especially with the people who are on Zoom that are not in here, that haven't seen this. The planning board is not an approval or denying board. We are a recommending board, and then that recommendation goes to town council. Town council takes that information, they go through a process, and then they make an up or down vote. So I just want to be sure we're clear with what we do here as a board. So with that, I'm sure others have questions, and I want to just basically run around the table, and we'll try to clean up those things as I go along. So I'll start with Walt, and Walt, you have the floor, please.
Okay, and basically, we're trying to surface all the questions. I don't have all of them in front of me. I've read some of them. I've got some of them there.
Okay.
Do you have those at all? Because
Well, I've got a number of things that I don't know that others are all privy to, because we didn't go over that. I did make a concentrated effort to really to speak to the individual members to say, hey, do you have questions
Yeah.
about, and do we understand what we're asking?
right.
And so from that perspective, the answer is no. I don't have other people's questions. We're not.
Okay, good. I was curious primarily about the wastewater treatment facility. And I know that we have a person on our board that would be able to go into that with us quite a bit, so I can table those.
Well, let me ask this question. Let's off that note. Are there any specifics on this wastewater treatment facility as we presently stand right now?
Are there what?
Do we have any data exactly what we're proposing?
Yeah, I mean, we're knee deep and head high into a 6 to 9 month study process and design and engineering, because we've had to go out and sample and get a full assessment. And that team is on Zoom.
Okay, but we don't have anything in the data packet that we have that tells us what that is. We actually have an expert on that, or a lot of expertise on that gentleman there.
No, but we can certainly provide all that. That's,
Okay, we'll need that before we have any discussion along those lines.
Yeah, I'd like to know if this is basically a pumping station, or if it's what type of water treatment facility it is.
who we have on the convention.
Michael
Michael
could probably answer that. Michael could answer.
Michael Athenas.
Michael, are you able to hear us? And maybe just a, high level overview of the wastewater treatment?
Yes. So my name is Michael Athenas. I'm a North Carolina licensed soil scientist and a South Carolina professional soil classifier. We were contacted by Mr. Bissell's team to go out and do a soil evaluation out there to see if what he wanted to do was doable. We did extensive testing in the beginning with augers and then performed backhoe pits all throughout the property. Once we narrowed the area down, we did additional backhoe pits in the area that we are prescribing to do the pre-treated drip septic system in. After we did that, we hired a hydrogeologist who did his own evaluation and confirmed all of our results. And since then, we've done additional pits and worked in conjunction with AWT, Agri Waste Technologies, Kevin Davidson, who's an engineer, and Chris McGee, who's also another North Carolina licensed soil scientist, where we did additional pits, deep borings, and have confirmed that the soils will accommodate what it is that the Roots Farm development wants to do.
And maybe I don't know if you can give a minute of summary of how the system, high levels of functioning.
I'm sorry, ask me that question again.
In layman's terms, tell them how it works.
So basically what it is you'll have all of the housing. All of the effluent will go down to tanks, and then those tanks will pump to a treatment facility. The treatment facility will treat the effluent, clean it, and then at that point we'll distribute it into the septic area. It'll be put in at a 6-inch trench bottom, so that way we're not disturbing or hurting any of the trees. As a matter of fact, we'll do just the opposite. It's going to be nutrients and irrigation for the trees as well. And There's many of these systems operating all throughout North Carolina, and they have a wonderful track record. It's an excellent system. It's very high technology and very efficient system.
Can you tell us how much acreage will be taken up for your irrigation distribution?
The septic area is comprised of somewhere between approximately about 55 acres for both initial and repair area for the development.
And the plan is that coexist with the forest area, so that there's not removal of trees to accommodate.
That's why the 6 inches, because we're worried about the feeder roots for the trees and so it's fairly elaborate. That's why it costs us, to be frankly honest, but it's all self-contained, no affluents to go offsite.
Is the treatment facility a secondary treatment facility, advanced, or what's the level of treatment prior to irrigation?
I think Todd, who's on this Zoom, can answer that better than me. It's Todd. Can you jump in?
It's Todd Carroll. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Todd Harrell. I'm with Aqua. We're the equipment supplier for the treatment system and the drip irrigation system that Michael was describing to all of you. And so the collection system that Michael was talking about, I want to go kind of back to the collection system first. What we're talking about, the tanks that receive the initial raw waste from the homes or the particular individual facilities, that being the inn and the restaurants as well. So we actually do what we call primary treatment in those tanks, not any differently than a septic tank does in a particular house. And so as we then pump that primary treated waste, which is essentially liquid only sewer, so we're not taking the solids all the way down to the treatment plant, we're actually keeping the solids into the tank. We'll manage those tanks. Those tanks will have to be pumped out on a basis just as they are inspected. So we're actually carrying liquid only sewer down to the treatment plant. And at that point, we have our Advantech system, which is an attached growth system. And what it is engineered textile that is hanging in fiberglass enclosed units. So we are not open to air. We are a fully closed system that has lids that you access the textile, and the effluent is just sprayed on the textile over and over again in a recirculation process, and the actual microbes attached to the textile. That process is over and over, and then it will go to a series of tanks that would distribute it out through the drip irrigation system. That system is completely monitored with a control panel that is telemetry monitored. So all of that is live. We can see any issues that happen. We are looking at flow rates that are happening as the system is running. And that all happens through a cellular community device, control device. So we're able to be in contact with that system 24/7, get any alarms or anything that may occur. The treatment level that we can get out of an Advantech system is really whatever is stipulated by the state, by the engineer, by the soil. We have these systems that we do direct discharges into creeks. We have these systems that do the subsurface application in individual single-family residences. We also do it on, strip malls where we have restaurants. So very, very similar to this application. And as far as the treatment level, we get down to the same treatment levels that town treatment plants discharge into body of waters.
Thank you. Just another quick follow on. How many of these collection points do you have, or collection tanks, on the front end and within the community then?
Right now, kind of just looking at it, and we're still putting that plan together as far as these buildings are putting together. I would say probably in the neighborhood of maybe 8 to 10 of those tanks that are clustered together and take the flow from the particular facilities. Okay. We haven't quite narrowed that down yet, but I would say in that neighborhood.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. If I can interrupt for just one quick second, and I should have mentioned this earlier. If we could keep the first round of questions back on the text amendment piece of it, and then we'll go back to the other stuff. And that way, both Lisa, Karen, the applicant can keep their notes segregated along those lines, and that way we don't confuse by jumping back and forth. So anything else along with the text amendment component specifically?
I did not have any problems with that. I think it's an evolution that we started in Weddington, that R80 went to R60, went to R40, went to RCD, and now we're going to R-A hood or something on that order. I think that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, this is really for Lisa too. There's someone who's relatively new to the planning board, yes, you know, I feel like it's in years already. So agritourism already exists within our land uses. And from what I'm hearing from the petitioner, most of what they are asking to do on this property, they're saying is already permitted under agritourism. So if they were just doing agritourism on this property, they could do the inn, they could do the barn, they could do the agricultural aspects, they could do some potential crafts and things, but maybe not too much. So they're one looking to expand that definition of agritourism to include craft stores and other activities like that.
Correct.
Then to me, the other major component, agritourism does not, though, if I'm correct, allow for residential development.
Correct.
So now we're creating that, so we're cleaning up agritourism, and then we're creating a new thing called agri-hood, which allows them to then combine cluster development residential along with agritourism. And that's essentially what we're being asked to do in this process.
Yeah.
I think I got it.
Anything else on the text amendment? Jim?
No, I don't have much on the text amendment as much as I do on the part about the architecture and are these, and this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but are these alley load or are they front load you propose on the residential part?
If you want us to go that, he's done that.
Or do you want to just keep to the?
Let's stay with the text
Okay.
amendment for the moment.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything with the text amendment.
Okay. All right. So from a text amendment component, I've got several things here. So when we go back to the definitions of 58-4, agriculture, horticulture, agribusiness operation primarily devoted to the promotion of tourism. So my question is, what does primarily devoted mean?
So they have their section of agritourism in their cluster plan where I would say the primary use is tourism. So that out of that small section of agritourism, agribusiness, the primary use is, I would say, the inn. And then you have that market barn, which can also allow tourism.
Yeah, I guess I have a.
Kind of like your primary use and your accessory structure, but to me.
I guess I'm reading a little bit different way. I'm looking at primarily devoted, and how is that measured? So is it land, is it economics, or other? If it's a land mass or economics, the project's largely scaled to residential. Because when we look at agricultural, if we're looking at farming, we have a total project here in within the town of Weddington of about 214 acres, and we've got 14 acres of farming. So I'm not real sure how that's primarily.
So the agritourism section is only right here.
Yeah.
If you look at the bubble plan, the rest is the residential.
Well, that's my point.
Right.
So what I'm saying is we have a significant amount of land mass more generated to housing than we do farming.
The whole thing is under a agri-hood that we're newly defining. So your statement is yes.
Yeah.
The majority is the residential use.
Right, and that's right.
It's a neighborhood.
Well, the agritourism says primarily, so we're saying, yes, our agritourism is a smaller portion of the site. And that's why we need the different definitions, because this does have multiple elements.
Okay, so we're applying for agri-hood in the specific area and neighborhood within specific areas? Is that what we're looking at?
We're calling the entirety the agri-hood.
Well, that's my point.
all the components.
Yeah, that's my point, because what we primarily have is a residential base. We don't have a,
Well, if we could show the bubble plan, what we primarily have is open space.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this development, if this is an agri-hood,
but I guess that's where we're getting to, because words matter. And we've called that open space and not conservation area.
well, what's the definition of agri-hood we're looking to?
That's not what we're asking.
Develop?
That's not what we're asking.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking.
I'm
What's
the
the
chair.
definition?
I'm the chair.
Go right ahead.
Why are we not labeling it conservation area instead of open space?
I think that, it's not defined. We're not necessarily calling that all conservation area. We want active walking trails. We
Correct.
talked about our treatment system is in that area, and we do want to have agricultural uses in there. I mean, I think this is a good example of the bubble plan, and we should, and we will. We'll add a next turn, a different color for the agritourism, agribusiness.
I think that would
And you can
probably,
see
yeah.
open space, residential, agricultural, agribusiness,
Well,
agritourism.
in Colin, we also have managed forestry services as well. So within the natural open space area, there's a very intentional managed forestry, program and that's been ongoing.
So the question, and you want more clarification between conservation and the common open space?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the reason why is because if we set the conservation area up as conservation, then that precludes development at a later date. So it needs to be in a separate easement, it needs to be in a separate line item. It doesn't need to remain under the one heading. Because at that point, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, assuming things, let's say they take a turn for the worst, then the applicant can come back in because they've got that in their statement. We can come back in and ask for different stuff. And it takes 3 votes on a town council that says, oh, well, okay, gee whiz, we need more homes to make this really work out. We're not turning the dollars we need to make. And so therefore we have that application at that point to do that. And so that's why that terminology is important. So the next question I have is renewable energy is in the text notes. The request to text notes, renewable energy means any facilities that utilize renewable energy, and here's what a significant problem is, without limitation. That's what it reads. So if we approve that, we could go back and have a solar farm on the land. We could have windmills. Without limitation is very specific and extremely broad. That needs to be severely limited. What solar? How much solar? Where is it limited to? Is it 5 acres? Is it 50 acres? Is it a house? What is it on? Exactly what is it?
Yeah, and so we do want the ability to have solar. I don't know that we talked about wind, but I don't know that we'd rule that out.
Well, that's my point. It says without limitation, and that's where when we have limitations, you tell me exactly what we plan to do, then we can make a recommendation to council to accommodate.
Is there something you're not comfortable with?
I'm not comfortable with without limitation. So
You
if
want some limitations, that they would do this, this, and this.
we want to know what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's just, I think that's probably the easiest way of doing that. Without limitation leaves a completely broad area for any interpretation whatsoever.
Okay.
We're proposing to add an agri-hood agribusiness renewable energy facility to RCD under conditional use. And I'm going to reaffirm that change does not require public involvement meetings at all. No discussion.
This text amendment process does, as planning board, council will have to call for a public hearing. We will have a public hearing on the text amendment as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no public involvement meeting.
Public hearing. Okay. So if we have a public hearing, I don't know that we could approve anything that the applicant has proposed until after that's been approved. Because if council has the discretion to change that and add words, conditions, deletions, we can't approve something or make a recommendation on something that we don't know what they're doing at that point. And so that's going to preclude us from doing anything with town council beforehand from that piece of
Text
it.
amendment has to run first.
Yeah, they have to approve the amendment and then we can come back and review that at that point.
The plan is to run them together at the same meeting.
I understand, but I don't know that that's possible.
So if they don't like the idea of the conditional zoning, they're not gonna adopt the text amendment. Or if they need more time with the text amendment, they're gonna table the conditional rezoning approval until the text amendment is clear.
But I think we've got to make a recommendation to them, get them to say what it is, and then we can make a recommendation as a board based on what that
Right,
is.
so you have 30 days to review it. So at the next meeting, we have to make a recommendation on the text and the rezoning.
Okay, we'll get clarification on it. I'm not real sure that's how it needs to work, but changing how the usable land is calculated is a huge change from what we currently allow. So at the end of the day, we can call it whatever we want to, but we still have a neighborhood with 230 homes here. We would not allow that in any other format. In fact, we probably wouldn't even have this conversation without a yield plan. So what is the actual yield plan that will allow for this particular piece of property?
So they submitted one with their first application.
So, yeah, so to be clear, we've looked at the land use plan, which calls one per, and that's how we got to
Sure.
that number. We've not done a yield plan. There are other developers who submitted them for the site. At our initial meeting, we said, this is what another builder showed. It is not 233. And I think we said, we don't know that anyone, no one's going to get to 233.
Well, that's part of our requirements from our ordinances that we have a
Well,
yield plan.
it's part of your requirements if you're developing a residential conservation subdivision.
But I think that's what we're doing. We just talked about having agribusiness and we have an RCD area as well, correct?
And so I guess I will say is, we did not want to, so the yield plan, we do see that in your ordinance. If you're doing an RCD, you got to do the yield plan.
Yeah.
We could spend months litigating the yield plan. You can get this many, no, whatever it is. If y'all want to look at a yield plan that someone's given you before and compare that, we're fine with that.
We want to know what the land requires to on the normal circumstances, how many homes will be on that particular land? And I think that's required on our ordinance to have a proper application
The
permit.
previous yield plan showed about 120.
120.
We usually are about 80%, so that gets us to, for 214 acres, that gets us to 170. If you take out 25 acres that they're showing for agribusiness and agritourism, we're closer to 150.
Okay, so somewhere in the range of 120, 150 is what we're thinking.
Yes.
That's what the true yield plan would allow.
Would have.
If someone were doing an RCD subdivision.
Correct.
And we haven't proved that out, but we're fine. I mean, that's not what we're proposing.
Does that seem reasonable estimation, 120 to 150? Does that seem reasonable based on your documents? Because I haven't seen any of that, so I'm not getting some assumption.
That is more than the prior development plan showed, but when Lisa said typically we get, 0.8 per acre, that did not sound unrealistic to us.
Okay. And that's based, I mean,
So there's one laid on my desk that somebody submitted, I saw the other day, it's got like 152 or something.
so somewhere in the general range is 150 is what we're thinking about, 130 to 150. Is that
150.
agreeable? We would agree with that, so reasonable based on.
Yeah, we've seen some that set up to 180, so somewhere in that range.
So 130 to 150 is what I'm gonna call it for the time being. And the other component is changing the dimensions allow for individual homes to space between land masses. Currently, our minimum expectation is of 12,500 square feet. This is a different dynamic. Now, I understand that. It's a different dynamic because the applicant, I think, has proposed doing it as a single owner.
Right.
Okay. Now, the one caveat I hadn't think about till today is we normally have a subdivided area of something. So we have commercial out parcels, we've got buildings, we've got an inn, we've got homes. But that's not what the applicant's asked for. What the applicant has asked for, a single owner component, which in other words is multifamily, because now you've got 230 homes is multifamily, and then that's not allowed within our area. So
How do you define it as multifamily?
well, you got multiple people are living on one parcel with one owner. That's an apartment building in most cases.
It's not.
See, I disagree. I disagree.
No, it's not an
with that.
apartment building, but it's multifamily. You got multiple homes on one parcel with one owner.
That's semantics, though. I disagree with that because they're individual
I'm the chair.
homes.
I'm the chair.
Okay.
We'll get back to the matter. I'll let everybody have their time. So that's something that really needs to be looked at is the spacing. And the reason why that's important is this. We have a single owner at this time. He's very well respected. He's built many properties. There's no question about that. I'm not disputing that one point whatsoever. What I'm looking at is at some point, nobody's getting out of this life alive. At some point in the next 15, 20 years, something's going to happen. And when you look back at the documents further back in, there is a note specifically for future owners to subdivide out parcels. And so that gets back to that point there. How do you do that? Because that's a new request. That's on page 8, by the way. Excuse me. How do you do that if you don't have multiple owners?
Someone wanted to subdivide, they'd have to come back through this conditional zoning process, and you all would say, no,
Well,
it doesn't meet our standards.
Yeah, but not when they're
We can't
bankrupt.
subdivide it.
Not when you're bankrupt. You have no option.
Is there a definition for multifamily in the ordinance? An actual definition of multifamily in the ordinance?
There's a single owner with multiple homes. It doesn't pass the eye test. So when we go back in and look at that, let me find my notes here, I'll tell you. Plan Exhibit B, proposed text. I think this is where this is here, hold on.
Is that part of tonight's
Absolutely.
handout?
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Can you give me a page reference on it?
That's what I'm looking for right now. Hold on.
Sit on this part.
It's on this one, on the development standards page. The-
Page 8's the last one on that.
Development standards, page 8. And the reason why that's important is because page 8, section 7, item 2, finding effect. If this rezoning petition is approved, all conditions applicable to development of the site imposed under the rezoning plan and these development standards will, unless amended by the manner provided herein, be binding upon and inure to the benefit of the petitioner, or plural, and subsequent owners of portions or parcels of the site as applicable, and their respective successors and interest in the signs. If you don't subdivide, you can't have subsequent owners of portions or parcels of the site. That's in the documents.
Sure, and that's a good, why we have these meetings. So this is in the binding effect language, which frankly is our boilerplate, so we're happy to address that.
I'm just, you asked me to look through your work. That's just what we're doing. So that's why that's important, because nobody wants anything to go bad. And obviously, this particular group has a well-founded knowledge, 50 plus years in the Charlotte area. There's no question about that. Things happen. And when they happen, what are we going to do? So it is, I don't like going well below 12.5. I don't like 12.5 in the first place for RCD, and I certainly don't want to go back to 5,000 square foot lots. But the reality is, based on their documentation, what is the reality if this thing goes belly up in 10, 15 years? You know, we're long gone. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. What happens? And so that's what we have to do is plan for the future, and those things have to have a plan. The other thing I don't took a look at it in the text amendment, it's changing from a 100-year storm to a 10-year storm requirement. We already have flooding issues in the area. Why would we do that?
Right, our stormwater, my capable associate just texted me to point out to you the site. Currently, there are multiple parcels that make up Roots Farm. So there are currently multiple parcels, but which is why that language is there.
Correct, but we have a single
We're happy to, does someone want to talk on the stormwater? Who would be our best person to address the? Eddie Moore, can you hear, and question is on the stormwater?
Yes, good evening. Yes, we will be meeting with the 70% open space or natural area that we do have here within the development. There is, in looking back at FEMA maps, current FEMA maps, there is no floodway that's on this property. There is floodplain within the significant branch that does cut through the property along Tarkiln Branch, but we do plan to have a series of detention facilities strategically placed throughout the development, but we also have the ability for water quality measures since we do have quite a bit of natural area to work with. The flooding, the owners, the Roots Farm, they would know if there is significant flooding that is occurring on this property. And the size of facilities to hold a 100-year storm, they are enormous. They are so large. And looking at the basin and where the assemblage of the property is located, it's actually quite a bit, and it will be significant infrastructure for events that will not occur based off of this specific basin.
Well, we've had 300-year storms here in the last 4 or 5 years, I believe. We're also getting ready to put 233 home sites up there with rooftops that don't absorb. So we're going to be changing the site quite a bit.
So I spoke to the town engineer about this, and 10-year is suitable for like your mixed use and maybe the Market Barn area. There's a lot of open space around it. We probably will ask for at least a 25-year storm for the residential like cluster section. But we did have the conversation about the tree save, and we are doing more damage by putting in these huge 100-year storm ponds by taking out a lot of trees at the closest point to the creek. So I think they'll have to do a flood study, and we'll have to see what our options are. But I think there is movement to up that stormwater requirement. I don't know if the 100-year is necessary for the 7%.
I don't know either. I just know what our standard is, and I know that's 10% of what that standard is. Yeah. So we've also had multiple neighborhoods with multiple flooding issues and things like that. And so I'd be real hesitant recommending that we approve anything that changes that quite a bit.
Yes, sir.
There's a note about allowing non-residential buildings and structures within the agri-hood not to be subject to the requirements of 5811. Can you expand on 5811, please?
I believe that's our 1 unit per lot standard. So they're saying that we're not going to have any lots. This is all going to be single.
That's where the lot issue is. Okay. And that would kind of roll back to my question earlier about multiple parcels, one owner and all that. Okay, if the worst case happens and this thing kind of goes sideways, then what happens? Do we need a definition on the principal non-residential building structure dwelling unit? And I guess at that point we're referring to hotel and inn, correct?
Right. And right now it's defined under agribusiness. So it's included under agribusiness.
Okay. And our current definition of agribusiness again?
Agritourism is the current definition.
Well, I understand that, but the hotel will be different. That's what I'm looking at. If the mission is education, how do we contractually make that happen? So do we have a minimum of 2 events a month, require use of local talent, students from Weddington High School, FFHA, Marvin Ridge have, require local basket weavers, percentage of people who are local to the Union County area, as opposed to bringing in Fred Johnson from Mississippi, whoever he is. How do we do that within the text? How do we make sure it's localized?
You're seeing like a commitment?
Absolutely.
Maybe expand on a little bit,
Well, if the mission is education.
which is one of the missions, right?
Correct. How do we know that's going to happen? So we need some commitment that says, okay, we're going to bring in 2 kindergarten groups a month or something. When we look at our artisan area and we have that area in there, we need to have some of that where it's guaranteed localized to Union County. How do we do that? This is supposed to be local farming. Yes, sir.
I'm just, if this is an agritourism business, by nature, we're looking to bring people from outside in and bring them money here.
Correct.
So it's not just a local commitment, it's a tourism business. It's bring money into Union County, bring money into Weddington from other areas. So I can understand, we are desired that it certainly is available there for local use. I get concerned about telling businesses how to run their business though.
No problem there.
And the word education is so broad, and I mean, we are absolutely committed to integrating all kinds of things, from the tourism to working with nonprofit groups.
No problem. Tell us what you're going to do.
But don't maybe
Put it in writing.
into a contract with it.
Put it in writing. And the reason why I say that is because we have no guarantee of what we're doing, and we're making significant changes to the normal protocols and normal standards within the town. You're asking me to put a commercial business in here, an inn, which is very hard pressed for most of the residents. Yes, sir. Mr. Bissell.
I'd just like to say this, and I told the mayor this last week, we don't want to go anywhere where we're not wanted.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you get down to telling me that I've got to have a contractual commitment to local people, I mean, we have North Carolina State wanting to come down and do a lab assessment down here after the soils assessment was done. Michael teaches at NC State.
Yes, sir.
And we have done all of our landscaping in sensitive areas through goats that we rent from a man in South Carolina. He has volunteered to come up and do an educational session each week.
Correct.
Now, we haven't started yet.
Right.
My wife was in education for 40 years. I started off as a 5th grade teacher.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't trust us and you get that all in writing, we can make this short order tonight.
What we need is a commitment that we're going to concentrate on education, and is what it is. That's what we're asking for. Now, education can be through the North Carolina State, and we appreciate that. But we also want to have some localized commitments from our FFHA, from Weddington or Marvin Ridge or Parkwood or Ardrey Hill, and I think that was part of what that discussion was, because I was there with you the other day, was having those students come in and look at that. What does that really look like? And it's pretty
I
big.
told you I don't know who's available locally. Can you give me a roster? And that'll take us for the next year or so.
I think that would be a wonderful place to start, and we could help you find out.
And I look forward to seeing you.
Okay. You had a question?
I want to follow up on this. I'm concerned about entering into additional contracts that stipulate, again, use of property after the fact. And what is the remedy if there's a default on that contract? So if we have a contract that says you have to spend 20% of the time allotted for use to go to local education, what if it's 15? What happens? Do you get into some litigation now over details of that? I don't think it's a business of local government to be telling people how to run their business. We're in the land use business. We're going to tell them what uses they could have on this property and what uses they can't have on this property. But if we agree to certain land uses, I don't think we can tell them how to run that business.
And just a comment on the vast departure from the norm. I hope we've gone through, your land use plan, which we look to. And again, agritourism is written in your ordinance, if that's something you want.
I'm getting that.
There is the goal about providing a diversity of housing type, and that density should be at 1 per 40,000. And that's from your plan.
And so
And I do think we will,
I think that should be consideration. Let's look at what the educational commitments are. If that's what our intent is, we need to know what those are.
well, we're going to partner.
That's what we're trying to find
We're
out.
going to be an absolute partner with surrounding farms, surrounding communities, and we've been that from day one. We will continue to be that.
Sure.
We want to partner with local farms here in the town.
And that's what we want to know.
Just a point of order. Fred, you keep using the term "we." And
We as a
and I want
town.
to make sure you're speaking for yourself, you're not speaking for the board.
We as a town, I'm speaking for myself.
You're speaking for yourself, one member of this board.
I have the floor. I have let everybody ask their own questions, and that's what I'm asking. You had your opportunity, now you have another. My other question was regarding single ownership and not subdividing. And is it not appropriate to require deeded lots based on if something happens, what is the remedy? Because we have different sections of the properties as they are. So we have a agritourism, we have an agribusiness, we have an inn, we have a restaurant, may have restaurants. Those probably need to be on different parcels as we look through.
So our intention is that they not be on. I mean, we're hearing our.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, what I'm suggesting is, if things go sour, what is the remedy? And with your notes on page 8, 2, it refers to parcels, owner, petitioners.
Yeah, there are multiple parcels now.
Well, I understand, but that's where we need to
And we
figure
don't
that
want
out.
to create multiple parcels. I mean, so I think when we bring you a Brian's plan, it will not show multiple parcels. We don't want street networks. We don't want all the things that chop this land up.
Right.
So, and that just may be a different of opinions. If
Maybe.
you all only want a lotted subdivision, then I guess we can hear that and we'll be on our way. But this is.
So that's under the text of the pieces of it.
Okay.
So then on page 8, that's what we talked about a minute ago. We just need to clean that up, figure out what it is, what we're asking for. Again, this is a review board. Town council makes those decisions. So, let me make sure. The streets from the agri to be privately owned and maintained. Those would be private streets or farm roads. The 20-foot wide access roads on an improved surface capable of supporting an imposed load of fire apparatus weighing at least 75,000 pounds. Have we talked to Chief McClendon about that? And how did that number come about?
I believe it was off another plan within the town, so I'll confirm.
Chief McClendon is the fire chief. What is the maintenance agreements for the roads? We'll need a maintenance agreement for the roads. They're gravel, they're not asphalt. They're going to deteriorate with wind, rain, snow, sleet. Constant driving back and forth with 200 houses. What is the maintenance plan and how does that accommodate it?
So all that, again, this is all private, under one ownership, would be maintained. Because we've gotten this feedback, you guys would like another layer, so we're working.
Well, that's
see
what
if we can
trying to figure out. So from that standpoint, normally on a road situation, before it gets to DOT approval, we require a bond. In case it doesn't meet that DOT approval, then we enforce the bond and move forward. In this particular case, we're going to have an ongoing private entity, and we have public uses of that being the residents of the tenants, whatever we want to call them, for those homes. How do we guarantee the roads stay up to standard for emergency vehicle access? I assume there has to be some sort of document that says that from a town's perspective.
I mean, I don't know that we see it much differently from, Harris Teeter, where you have, that's multiple tenants. I mean, the town doesn't control the driveways. That's maintained, and that's how it typically works.
That is true, but those are asphalted. And those deteriorate over a long period of time versus a gravel road's going to deteriorate much quicker by default, correct?
That's correct, and they'll still be maintained by the entity.
But as a town, we have to be able to secure that and make sure that happens. because we have a public responsibility to have safe roads, access, and things along those lines. And normally that's done through a bond format, but this is completely different than that. So how do we do that?
Yeah, I don't think that private streets and drive are your responsibility, but our
The
entity.
safety piece is, and that's where the response is. The safety piece is for fire. That's where.
Fire is 20-foot road width with the weight of the fire truck.
Not if the fire truck can't get down it because the road's been dilapidated. That's the concern. Those are the things that come right off the top of the head of what we as a board need to be looking at and making sure we're doing our due diligence across the whole piece. We would do that for any other neighborhood. So those are the basic things I have under the text amendment component. Yes, Ed.
Yeah, just following up on, I guess this falls on the text amendments. I share some of the same concern in terms of looking at this project in terms of, all right, if this is not a multifamily development, if this is single-family homes within one parcel, I have concerns about public access and road networks. You know, when your road, I'm not articulating this very well, but I share some of the same concerns that Brad had when it comes to road access, maintenance of roads. You know, the utility system, or is this going to be a private water system, or are you going to have a public utility system right up to each home? The county will, I believe, can do both. Where are we drawing the lines? Where are you drawing the lines between this being a residential development of individual single-family homes versus a multifamily kind of structure? So, you know, you put up a townhouse development is the closest I would look to this. I've seen townhouse developments that are done as a single parcel. I've seen townhouse developments that are done as fee simple each lot. And you're kind of in that, well, we're one lot, but we have private streets, and townhouses might have public streets. So I do have some issues that would need some better definition. The utility system, is that going to be sized to serve just this development? Or is the utility system going to serve your adjacent parcels, the wastewater system? Is renewable energy system going to serve adjacent parcels that you own? Can it serve adjacent parcels that you don't own? Or how do we limit that? Do you now get into the energy business where you're selling renewable energy to the grid? Or is this the intent to have it for this property and this property only? Or this development, including this property and your other adjacent properties? And I have no idea how that works legally when you're dealing with county and town. But I would want some better understanding on that aspect when it comes to text amendments and definition of the project.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
If we're going to move, when we move in, I do have a whole series of questions, or really looking for you to explain more detail the whole residential aspect of this. I don't know if this is the right time.
We'll gotta go back, two more things, we'll go
Okay.
forward to that. So let me pause you just for a moment, please. So in the proposed text on agribusiness, I would like to see that more classified as more toward a working farm relationship. I'm not sure how watches and clock makers relate back to that, but I'm not sure that's within the piece of that. On the agricultural uses, we talk about animals. I would like to see that more related back to restricted to the types of animals, to farm animals commonly known to the area. We've got bees and apiary products. There's no problem with fur animals. I don't think that's probably something we should probably have there. What would they be?
We're not saying a major livestock component.
No, I understand, but that's in the text, and as a board, we probably need to kind of.
Like, we have goats out there.
Goats is a commonly known animal. I got that. A mink is not. A goat's not a fur animal.
Yeah,
We're happy to do that. I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure there's no issue with that.
Yeah, I didn't think that was gonna be an issue. We need to kind of clean that up and make sure that we kind of restrict that back to commonly known animals to the region. I'm not real, when we go back down to agritourism, my page cut off, but so forgive me, but provides temporary overnight accommodations for individual groups, including but not limited to those persons or groups engaged in supervised training, which is fine. Personal improvement activities, I mean, yoga could be included in that. I don't know. We already have a yoga studio. So I don't know if that needs to be kind of streamlined somehow to kind of restrict those things back down to where, you know, is a gym a personal improvement activity? Probably. They're not interested in running a gym either. So is an exercise room at the end? Probably, but that's not what their main business is. So if we could spend some time, staff and you guys, cleaning some of those things up to where we're kind of streamlining these things back out. I know a lot of things are probably boilerplate from other projects that come through, but if we can restrict that back down to things that are associated specifically with this specific project, that specifically related to Luritz Farm within the town of Weddington, as opposed to other areas of the country where we may have probably got some of that stuff out. So without objection, I'll cease on the text amendment piece of it, if that's okay. So moving on to the next spot. I'm sorry, let me ask you, Colin, do you guys have any more questions on that piece? You guys good?
On the text amendment?
Anything on text amendment? Okay.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to conditional usage, and I guess we might as well just go ahead and do criteria with the town code ordinances at the same time. Lisa, is that okay? We had to go both at the same time? All right. Walt, we'll just run around the room again one more time.
Okay.
Questions or comments on residential conservation district, conditional usage, and additional review criteria within a town code or ordinances? Do you have any questions or statements for the applicant?
No.
Yeah.
Again, the question, I'm trying to get a vision of your residential area. I mean, you talk about, you know, we want to fit each property to each house to the lot. And we want to, you know, let the land speak to us. And then I look at a 10-foot separation between homes. I'm looking at front-loaded garages or front-loaded on-street parking. I don't see how that comes together. I don't see how you get 10-foot separation between buildings, garages in the front of a home, or even on-street parking in front of a home and no garage. I see you clearing out major swatches of land in order to hit that kind of density.
Yeah, let's let Jeff, do you mind kind of giving an overview of how
Sure, if you
residential
look
is?
actually at the middle, if you could blow it up a little bit, you can blow it up. And if you look at the middle cluster there on the left.
You want to come up one?
I
I hear you, or you want me to?
And that's what I was looking at, and I'm gone, everything in light green is gonna be cleared.
Well, everything within that, see that green line right there? It's just hard to see, it's a little.
Yep.
That's all cleared now, that's the field. We're building most of the houses in the field to keep preventing from cleared lot. But if you'll scroll down that way, to answer your question, there's the house, there's the garage, there's the parking, here's the front.
Okay, so they're alley loads.
They're sort of alley loaded. I don't want to say alley loaded because
No alley.
that's more the old sort of townhouse thing where you drove in the back and all that.
I
If
think
you
the
had a
back,
question about them being front loaded, we have no intention of you seeing the ass end of the car when you ride by
right,
and look at the house.
yeah. Now, I was trying to picture this Baxter in Fort Mill concept, so like,
Yeah.
Okay.
They park in the street in front of.
Summer Park Street,
There's
sure.
nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I think most of the general parking and the thought is.
Those row houses.
But you're not getting a driveway.
Right,
No, we have no intention of doing that,
Right,
because
right,
I think that looks a little bit, that's not within the aesthetics or the community that we see. We
Right,
see it
right.
more of a front porch thing, right,
Mhm.
sitting there, and Brad's on the sidewalk, and he wants to speak to me, he can't,
Yeah.
or vice versa.
I'm just seeing it very urban. I'm not seeing this rural, I'm not seeing this country, I'm seeing, you know, again, 10-foot separation between homes, front porches. I mean, you're putting down a gravel road instead of asphalt, and again, I think it's an interesting concept. I'm just not understanding if you're doing this on what's now mostly open space, then don't talk to me about saving trees. I'm gonna slot this house there. I'm gonna slot this house there. Show us what you're gonna do.
Back over to this way.
And maybe if you that's a good point that you're making. What Jeff is showing is this bubble design follows mostly the already
We
cleared
follow
areas.
most of the contour of the trees, but in this area, for instance, or in this area, we were actually working, this part of the farm years ago was logged. It was logged. Everything east of the creek was logged a lot more intensively than the stuff on the west of the creek. If you go out there, we can show you.
Mhm.
There are major trees in here that we want to save. These are located. We're going to try to build about underneath the drip line. But this particular house may move 10 or 15 feet one way or the other to miss a tree here. We'll go out there and put a pin in the ground and just look at the plan we're going to build there and figure out, how to do it. We're not laying it out like your subdivision boys who just bulldoze everything and every 30 feet, put a driveway in or a house. There's stuff we're trying to leave us enough flexibility to go in here and look. We don't want to put the house, for instance, in the middle of an oak tree.
The concern I have though is that we're giving you the ability to do that. We're giving you the ability to clear cut this property, take it all down, put houses 10 feet apart. That's what this text amendment and development plan would do.
Well, now if you put or if you had the bubble plan overlay over this, those are the only areas that we can be in. And that
Within that bubble plan, you've got a lot of space that you could throw in houses. So I'd like to see.
Well, that was the reason, just so we could slide them around a little bit. If that makes sense.
I'd like to see some better spacing between homes. I think when you're talking 10 foot between homes as a standard, you're talking very high density. You're talking putting 200 homes out there. And I think that density is, I don't think that's the look you're telling us. The look you're telling us and what you're asking us to approve, I think are two different things. You're looking at lower densities than that. You're looking at maintaining, key landscape features. You're looking at keeping separation between homes, working with the land, but you're asking us to approve something that would allow you to do something else. So let's get the language more in agreement with what you're telling us.
Well, and maybe a part of it is that when you start talking about the densities, given a particular area where there's some tree cover or something, then I would see that you might have a series of 7 cottages from the renderings that aren't taken. And then, so there could be 10 feet apart, but then there would be larger homes that would maybe be set back further from the road that would have larger, so it's all, I think it's being set up as there would be a minimum of 10 feet in some situations. But then there would be other situations where it could be 40 feet because there's an oak tree or something. So it's not cookie cutter.
The limit you're asking for is the number of units, over 200 acres.
Or
one for every 40,000 square feet.
Or I don't know, Blue Pete, this is a very, very creative project that you've got here, and I applaud it. I really do. I'm encouraged by what you brought forward, and I think it meets the goal, a lot of the goals that the community has set in our land use plan. So, well, maybe you talk about an average instead of, since it's one parcel, you talk about an average separation. You talk, is it an average for 20 homes, an average for 10 homes? And that's 20 feet. So it's okay if you need to move one around here. So it's a minimum of 10, but we're going to average 20 or 30 or whatever. And let's come up with some creative solutions that keeps you from being able to just go, hey, we started here. I'm in a cluster development right now also, and it took them 15 years to finish, 12 years to finish that development with the downturn they hit in the economy. And they violated all their development standards as times got hard because they had to sell homes to stay afloat. So yeah, it may have been in the covenants that they gave us, but those covenants went out the window when they had to make a profit and keep themselves afloat. So I don't want to put something in a land use that gives you absolute authority to do something if you're saying you really don't need it. It's not what you really want. You want to do something more creative. So let's give you a more creative solution to be able to work around that, but it'll keep the densities more in line that way. Anything else?
Go ahead.
Jim?
I I just want to say along what Ed had said, I know you haven't broken out in villages or pods. Based on the land, what I was currently field was currently needing to be cleared per house. Is there a way that you could do what Ed is saying is, 10 to 20, or based on each region that you have? Because I know the spaces, you're saying it's based on where the trees are. If we have a better idea of sort of the lay of the land, a lot of us have been on tours, but you guys know it a lot better than we do. So if there's a way to see that, the residential pod 3, these are the type of homes we're talking about, and this is the spacing. In this section, it's basically just going on what Ed is saying. It gives us a better understanding of the number that we're talking, because obviously density is a concern.
And I think we can, put some more meat on the bone, as we're saying on the pod 3 over there. We're showing 100-foot buffer, but north of that, where there's the neighboring residents kind of said, the topo there, you're not going to put homes there. Just said, you know what, we're not going to put homes there. So as we refine that, we can try to put a little more detail to it.
Jim?
I got a totally different question. On the Union County portion, which is none of our business, but is there been ever any consideration given to annexation of that portion into Weddington?
There's some flexibility that comes from being a bona fide farming county. So there's some benefits there. I think that the thinking is that would just be a later phase of the development. If it developed, it would be similar to this. I think we said in a recent community meeting, but annexation would not be off the table. Certainly something to be talked about. This goes well, and we're comfortable, and Weddington's comfortable with us. I think that's on the table.
So as you get back into, I'm sorry.
Just to reiterate a comment that a petitioner brought up earlier, where you had heard from the community that members of the community were looking for some other level of either institutional framework, or call what you will, that locks down some of these commitments and works within that single owner framework, but creates some other level. And I would just want to voice that same concern that how do you lock down these commitments for the long term and make them work? And I don't know what that is in North Carolina. I can tell you some Florida solutions, but I don't know the North Carolina solution.
Okay. All right. So looking at the development standards, we've kind of gone over a number of these pieces here. When we go back on item number 4, which is what Ed was referring to, kind of nailing down exactly what we're looking at to possibly approve and not approve. These are possible graphic representations of possible proposed agri-HUD and site elements. So we understand you want some little bit flexibility. We understand that piece of it. Not totally comfortable with that, but I understand what it is and I can understand the reasoning. What we have to understand is where the fire hydrants are located, it's a safety issue. So we just talked about that earlier, where Chief McClendon was having issues of accessing certain properties because the fire hydrants on one side of the street, his reaction area is on another side of the street, so therefore he's got to shut the street down because he's got a fire hose going across. So you can't drive across the fire hose because then it endangers the firemen. It's a significant issue. So without understanding where those pieces are, I would have a hard time recommending approval any of those things until we have those safety issues kind of worked out. How are you going to get water back there to it? That was back to Ed's question, which was your utility infrastructure. Are you going to do on city water? Are you going to do on county water? Obviously, we're dealing with the sewer issue, but how does the fireman work it out? We got houses 10 feet apart from each other. That's a significant safety hazard.
And you know the answers on what we're doing with public water? I don't know that we would know location of fire hydrants on any project at this phase in a rezone.
Well, normally we would know that before we approve it.
Homes first to do that.
We wouldn't know that if we were doing a single family subdivision, I think.
What Lisa?
That's a construction plan phase detail that we would look at and make sure the fire marshal's comfortable with.
Right, but we got to know how they're going to get the water there first, I would assume, before we.
I would assume you were going to use
County
county utilities.
It's county water.
That's what we talked about. We talked to the county about it. So.
All right. From the uses limited to your plan. So there was some discussion about this at the meeting the other night on Friday. How many restaurants are we proposing? I understand one, and then I see two in the text. We want two now, correct?
Well, the idea is that there is a restaurant in the inn. There's a farm to table restaurant.
I assume that was the restaurant.
Well, and then one in the market barn is the way we currently have it written.
So, okay. So if I'm guessing, because I don't know the plan, so the market barn would be more of a, I'm gonna pick a number, quick grill type place where I come in and get a croissant and a egg and some bacon and move on, and then the restaurant would be a full-fledged breakfast where I get fresh fruit, orange juice, and mimosa, and call it a day. And is that basically what we're talking about?
Yeah.
It's almost a first coffee shop versus a restaurant.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm headed towards. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay, we've gone over transportation with the access because I mentioned about the fire department getting in and out. Have we had a traffic impact analysis yet, or are we still working on that?
It is underway.
I've been working with Justin Carroll with STV. We have it scoped out. I've seen some preliminary work going back with NCDOT. We are looking at the traffic signal warrant at Ennis with the turn lanes and then turn lanes on the other access points.
Okay. I think within that piece of it, I don't think I got much in that. Item 7, I think we went back over that again. I saw earlier, item B, architectural features for the inn. Our maximum height there was what, 44 feet?
Under your ordinance, it's 35 to the eve.
Right.
We were showing.
The top, 44 is the top of the roof.
45 to the top of the roof line. Okay.
Yeah, so if you back out, you'd be well under 35 for the eve.
Okay.
Just the definition of the way you wrote it.
That's fine. I just want it clear. Okay. We've talked about item 7, which is item 2, the binding effect piece of it, to try to figure out what the parcels are, how's that going to work out on developmental standards. And then on conditional zoning. Conditional zoning section, under site plan elevation development standards, about in the middle of the paragraph. Each structure is required to get a zoning permit so staff can ensure the placement is consistent with the zoning site plan. However, any major changes to the use areas, open space, et cetera, define major.
If they were moving a home into any of those other areas, that would be a major change, right?
Okay.
So they are required a zoning permit for each structure, so I can make sure it matches that site plan, conceptual site plan that was given. But if it moves out any of those areas, it would be a major change.
Okay, so hopefully we have something a little more definitive than the conceptual plan at that point. I assume at some point you will have a more refined plan that says the houses are going to be in this area, we're going to be in this spot. I understand moving a couple feet throughout the tree, I understand that, but much more detailed than what we got now, is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, following this meeting, we're gonna have discussion with our team based on what else we've got, and we'll provide, I don't wanna overpromise.
Right.
But we understand the ask.
Okay. All right. And in no event shall the aggregate, okay, I'm on page, well, whatever page that is after that. Permitted usage bubble diagram identifies 4 areas. Aggregate is limited to a density of 1 dwelling per 40,000 square feet. This is under single ownership, so the applicant is not subdivided. I got some questions about that, obviously, about how that works out in the real world at the end. Personally, not comfortable with 233 houses at all. So if we go back to what your dimension said earlier, I think on our land use plan on the first slide, Item number 4 was strong single-family residential character. Number 7 was varying lot sizes. And so, not real sure how stacking these houses right beside each other 10 feet apart is going to maintain a strong single-family residential character of Weddington. No place in Weddington looks similar to that at this point. We do have varying lot sizes. We have lot sizes anywhere from 4,000 square feet down to 12,000 square feet. So we already have that. So when we look back in the agri-hood piece of it, and we define what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, to get back down to our 200 houses, if we went an RCD standard, we wouldn't have anywhere near those houses.
We agree with you 100%.
So how is that? I'm lost a little bit at how that's a benefit to the town.
Well, I mean, your goal 7, through the conditional process, provide varying lot sizes to accommodate a variety of age and income groups and broader residential options so the community's population diversity may be enhanced.
Sure.
That cannot be done under your current ordinance.
Well, we have that now because we have homes anywhere from probably, I don't know, $4 or $5 million down to 200 grand.
I bet you do not have a new home built in Weddington for less than.
We have homes in Weddington for those numbers. We don't have new homes. We have homes in those areas.
Okay.
We also have rental homes. They're at 900 square feet or less.
To accommodate a broader residential option so that the community's, I didn't write this.
No, I understand. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how can we get back to a more reasonable number of homes in this area?
Just turn this down.
Well, that's not for me to do. That's for the town council to do, but
You can make a recommendation, turn this down.
sure.
That'd be acceptable.
But again, every reference in your plan is 1 per 40,000. And I understand the clustering is.
Based on usable space. Based on usable.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
I've read it 14 times.
It is based on, that's why we have a lot yield plan to do that. You can't put a house in a creek.
You're subdividing.
If you subdivide.
And that's why there's no way to do this under your current ordinance. Like it can't be done. So that's what we're proposing. If you're not comfortable with it.
I'm not.
then all you
personally.
right here. And if the town only wants it, that's okay. You know, that's the answers. That's what you'll have. There will be no more diversity in price point and the type of preservation that we could do.
And what I said to you earlier, if you don't want us, that's fine.
Well, I'll speak for myself.
Hold up our, 10.
I understand. I'm speaking for myself. I'm asking questions that I know a number of residents have.
Just trying to answer.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. So the 79,000, I'm sorry,
I have a question.
please.
With this density question, this 233, you guys came up with that, if I'm not mistaken, mathematically. It's a mathematical number that has just been, that's been based on our current ordinance, correct? So, and I know you've mentioned several times that 233, from what you gathered, is not an accurate number per se of what you expect you would be able to build based on the land and as you move forward. So is it safe to say that 233 is not an accurate number of what you're expecting to build, and that it would be less than that? Or is that your maximum number you'd like to have?
That's the maximum number we'd like to have. We will not build that in the initial phase, naturally. But that is the number that we like.
In
to
the
have.
overall, at the end of the day, that's the number that you're shooting
right.
for. Okay, I think that is where there's concern. And I wonder if when you do further research on the lay of the land and how the trees are, and as you get more into a detailed process, do you envision that number coming down based on how the land is and not wanting to clear cut? Obviously, clear cutting is not what your mission is. Do you see that number being reduced based on how the land is now?
Possibly, but not dramatically. I mean, there's a for the type of development. So there's 2 types of the math problem. The other type of the math problem is what actually works. I mean, these aren't $500,000 homes, so for $1.5 million. They're, as we said, 1, 2. So we need, Mr. Bissell, reminds me, we may have a little play in that number, but there's a set denominator that to make the project work. So it's not just us saying, it's 40,000, it's 40,000. That's part of the economics of the project to make it work. And so there may be a little shaving, but I don't want to, we wouldn't be back in here at 108.
Yep.
We won't be at that.
Yeah.
My eyes aren't good enough to count all the boxes on your site plan, but I'm guessing somebody did at some point. You drew them all. I mean, I'm not guessing there's anywhere near 150, 160 homes here on the, as you're showing as a conceptual plan.
Yes,
I think there's 232.
On this?
Yeah.
There's 232 homes there?
Yeah. Now granted, I didn't graduate from the 12th grade.
My eyes aren't that good anymore.
I did count twice, so I'm wrong.
Okay.
Lisa has a question here. So in no event shall the aggregate amount of agribusiness and agritourism uses in the agri-hood exceed a maximum of 79,000 square feet. This is less than 0.10 FAR. For reference, Weddington's MX district allows it to 20. Where did the 79,000 feet come from and what exactly is 0.10 FAR, please?
So the 79,000, that's the total of our inn, plus the market barns, plus a little bit extra for us to have some cushion.
Yeah, actually, what you see drawn is less than that.
Okay.
There is enough room in there for where the mushroom guy is right now to do another
Sure.
structure.
And forgive me, the acronym FAR?
It's a floor
area
area
ratio. So
Thank you.
take
I knew it was something simple. I
So
just,
207 acres times 43560 and divide that, it comes out to be less than 10, certainly not 10%.
natural areas of the agri-hood may be devoted to any uses permitted by right in the required open spaces. Trails shall be provided with the natural area. Clarify what it is and is not allowed, please, Lisa, by right.
It's the same as our conservation subdivision ordinance, so they copied and pasted those standards of what's allowed.
Okay. All the other stuff seems pretty boilerplate. Okay, I think that was basically. So I know you're probably pleased to hear I'm basically out of questions here, but before we kind of close this particular piece of it, does anybody else have any questions from the board's perspective, please? Jim? Ed?
No other questions.
All right. Lisa, obviously at this point, we're not ready to make a vote on anything, and nor would the applicant wish us to do so. So in keeping with the 30-day period, what does that take us to call a special meeting?
I think it was January 20th. That's why I recommend at least a week prior to that date. And I think Ed said he was available January 6th. I was looking at Mondays and Wednesdays, since the office is open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we can look at some Tuesdays and Thursdays as well, if the 6th doesn't work for you all.
We have a community meeting that week, potentially.
The 11th is a holiday.
And the 18th is the holiday.
11th is town council. So the 12th, the Tuesday. Fourteenth is a Thursday.
From the board's perspective, is either of those 2 days not agreeable to anyone, anybody?
Are we talking evening meeting?
Up to you all.
I'm available anytime on Tuesday and certainly for an evening meeting on Thursday.
Jim?
Are you talking the 5th?
No, we're talking
12th and
12th, yeah, I'm good.
Jim?
I'm jammed up on the 12th, 14th, I'm open.
14th, you're open.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So are we on agreement as a board on the 14th, staff?
Yeah.
All right. Does the applicant have any issues on the 14th?
We won't have Mr. Bissell on the 14th, but our team could be here, probably remotely.
No, I'm at the Mayo Clinic.
Okay, sorry.
Those guys, what are you all?
Okay.
He's probably got a higher calling at that.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. All right. Mr. Bissell, is that okay if we meet with your staff on the 14th?
No, I mean, I don't need to be here.
Okay.
if that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we all in agreement of 14, going once, going
Are we
twice?
gonna adjourn it, or are we going to, what's the right term?
We'll table this.
Table, so we need to do that for date and time and location,
correct.
certain.
And call for a special meeting.
All right, so we need to have a motion.
Well, it's not a special meeting, it's a continuation of this meeting.
Well, we're not continuing this meeting because we're gonna finish this meeting.
Okay, we're gonna finish this meeting. Okay, that's what I was asking, please, that's a continuation.
So we're
So
gonna
you're just gonna advertise a new special meeting then?
Right, well, I'm just gonna call for it. We'll advertise it. We'll
Right.
table the vote for recommendation, and then we can go on to the rest of the meeting.
Okay, so from a protocol standpoint, what exactly do you need to do at this moment?
You need a motion now?
That's what I'm asking.
So the motion is to table item 5A and 5B to January 14th at 7 PM at Town Hall.
I would like to suggest a little earlier, if we can, if it's amenable to the board.
Applicant? What time you refer to, please?
6 o'clock, 6:30?
6:30.
Oh, sure, we could do any.
Is that, okay, anybody have an executive 6 o'clock?
That's fine.
Okay,
So move.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Okay, so that particular transaction is complete for the evening, is that correct?
Okay.
And I trust you'll send me an email on that. Okay, thank you, I appreciate it very much. Anything else we need the applicant for this evening?
Thank you all.
I appreciate it, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Can we have a 2-minute recess?
Please, yes, please.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in.
I do that. No matter which order this.
All right, our 2 minutes are up.
Okay.
Let's get rolling back again, please. Kevin, are you still with us?
Yes, sir, I am. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Appreciate your patience with us.
Oh, very good. I think it was good for me to listen to all that. We'll, sure we'll be partly plugged in on the legal side, helping with looking at some of that drafting that they're going to do. So more to follow, I'm sure.
I know it's going to be either short or rather long, one or the other.
Very good.
I can't even find my agenda now. I'm in London. I gotta put that here. What's our next on our agenda, please?
The discussion and review of the Unified Development Ordinance, sections 9 through 14.
Thank you. Lisa, please take over.
Straight to Kevin. It's all you, Kevin.
All right, very good. Given the hour, I'm going to assume folks would prefer the quicker version, but please stop me and slow me down if anybody has questions or comments, okay? Last meeting, we talked about trying to rework the way we were drafting Article 9 to keep kind of I'll say the main things, the main thing, and put things that were not the main thing into appendices in hopes of a document that was a little easier to read and a little shorter in volume. And when I say the main thing, wanting to have in the actual primary text of the ordinance language around your residential developments and related general provisions with things that were more technical in nature being moved to the appendices. So we took a pass through at trying to implement what we discussed and what I took notes on at the last meeting. So I'll run you through what we did here real quick. Again, reminder, trying to at least stick the best we can to the structure of 160D, Article 9 of the state statutes. So with that background, what we've done is D 901, and this is all under Part 1 of particular land uses. We note the authority. In B, we reference the 15 particular uses that the state statutes and that the state legislature have said has some particular rules around them. I don't know that you all will ever actually get to many of these, but at least they're listed here so somebody could know when to look at the statutes. And then I think the most important part, and here, let me pause again, just the color coding that would help you here would be blue is my own drafting and green is just cut and paste out of your existing ordinances, okay? And I've left in references to existing ordinances. So here's the main part, residential development, required improvements. in residential. And here we've plucked out your existing ordinance, required improvements for all the various residential standards, whether it's subdivision, street naming, block lengths, lot dimensions, what have you. So this is a direct cut and paste out of what you already have. No changes.
It kind of begs the question, if I may, that are there any changes that have been discussed in the past that obviously now is an opportunity to make them? Not having been here.
That's a fair question. I don't believe I have had anybody report to me a topic that they want to change, and then I've had I've had the instruction of make sure we don't change and don't lose anything that we have on our residential development. So
the only thing I can think of is plugging in the tree ordinance language, and I think we have a placeholder for that here. Don't we?
We do have a placeholder for that coming up.
But open to suggestions if you're reading through and you see some stuff, it'll probably be a separate process than.
Will the tree ordinance incorporate the stormwater management aspects also, or is that a separate?
That would be separate as well. I don't think we have enough studies to be able to do that text amendment right now. We're just doing add the 2 on-lot trees, the street trees, don't clear around the setbacks.
Yeah, right.
So we're just keeping it simple for now until we have time
Yeah,
to do that bigger study.
Personal opinion, I 100-year stormwater plan, as you said, you're developing huge retention basins. That's well beyond the norm in the area.
And a lot of times you have water flowing in different areas, so you need several basins,
Yeah.
and you're just cutting down trees for 4, 5, 6 lots sometimes.
For an ugly dry pond 90% of the time.
The engineer does recommend going back to the 25-year, which I think is the county. Just there's more ability to save trees and run it through the natural system versus cutting down that many trees.
Well, if you're, just for anyone listening, if you're protecting the floodways and protecting the floodplains, it mitigates the amount of retention you need to have. And the county, I know, has done a good job in the last 10 years of expanding protection to floodplains and floodways, and I know the town does. So, yeah, I think we have those protections.
So in light of
So
that,
I would just kind of keep right. Let's hold there for a minute. So so we've copied existing residential development standards out of your subdivision, and then we move to the next category of uses where we have supplemental regulations related to a few other additional uses. One of them being customary home occupations, and then again you have some existing ordinance provisions there that are copied in verbatim. Office trailers is a use that your existing ordinance. Here, let me hold for a minute here. You all may recall, this is a reminder, you all remember we had the section of the ordinance where you had some existing standards that were very general, that really just said, really didn't say anything, that just said compatibility and generally consistent with the land use plan. And the assignment you all gave me was go through that list of uses that had some standards and pull out these specific ones. And so this is a subset of 5888 that in fact has any specific requirements related to particular uses. So one of those is office trailers with some time limitations and not to be used for residential purpose. One of them is service stations. Again, I don't know how applicable that's going to be going forward since it's not allowed in your primary residential zoning, but your existing ordinance does have some parameters around that if anybody came back and revisited something in your business district. Essential services had some specific provisions around it. Park and Rec facilities had some specific provisions in them. So that was implementing your folks' instructions on how to handle those use provisions. And again, Forest for the Trees, we've just gone over category of things that have specific additional requirements related to particular uses. So now we're at all your general requirements. Again, intent here was to not make changes, but to organize your lot abutting a street requirement, your one principal building per lot requirement, your temporary structure and use requirement. And we can just kind of keep going through these quickly. Rules around accessory uses. Height, signs, and just as a, let's hold there, Lisa, if you could back up real quick, just as kind of our first example of trying to save some space. So, and just a little judgment here. I mean, I could do this in some other places too, right? But for signs, we said, okay, that's technical. Let's put your existing sign ordinance in an appendix, and when and if you all need to refer to it, great. It'll be, I mean, it's an equal part of the ordinance. It's just not going to be part of the front end kind of easy read part of it. So kind of considered signs to be technical, and you'll see some other ordinances that we put in the same category. Landscaping, we went ahead and put in here thinking that would be relevant to you on a pretty regular basis. Fences and walls, same kind of category. And here's the placeholder. We said we could add your trees and open space ordinance. Seemed like the right place while we were dealing with landscaping and tree type issues. Next category, roads, items. So, you know, your rules about visibility of intersections, your rules about off-street parking. Again, just trying to make some judgment calls over things that you would likely to look at if you were reviewing a residential conservation subdivision. You wanted to have that here in the front end, and technical items less likely to be used in the back. Outdoor lighting, and then I kind of switched judgment that lighting, you know, more detailed lighting standards as an appendix, your architectural standards for commercial in an appendix. Lisa, back up real quick so we can just tag them, because this was one we had kind of a homework assignment to. Let's gated community requirements, the gates and private streets. This is a portion of your existing ordinance. Recall our discussion from last month where we were going to eliminate the planned residential development as a separate process, that you've already got the CZ zoning process, so that you don't need a different process than that. But if somebody came along and wanted to do a gatehouse or private streets in a residential development, this might be of interest to you all, right? So it's here. So that the substantive standards for a subdivision, if you had private streets or gates, we kept that part of the planned development section of your ordinance. And then I'm really going to pick up speed here. We're going to get to the end fast. Is part 2 of the state statute of that Article 9. So part 1 was uses and areas broadly defined, and that's what we've just tried to do. And that's the most space of really any section of this new ordinance rewrite. Here is where you get to your environmental regs. We talked about the biosolids situation. You all discussed the idea that really this was a state regulatory matter, and that we, don't have the biosolids expertise and really don't have any permitting right there anyway. That was a little bit questionable. So we just cross-referenced. So again, blue's my change, right? We just referenced the other laws that would be applicable and just say you have to follow those. And then your three big ordinances, erosion control, floodplain regs, and stormwater, all moved to appendices so they could be used and referenced as appropriate. I think most likely in a construction drawing review, although I guess I could imagine you all referencing that occasionally in one of your CZ zoning reviews. But here would be an example where instead of having, I don't know, it's probably 100 pages worth of stuff, right? Is we just reference the appendix and make it a really quick read here, and hopefully a little more user-friendly for you all and others, and using these technical ordinances as, you know, as reference materials. Anybody have any questions on that? That little paragraph there is a lot of substance. Everybody's following?
Yep.
All right, very good. Part 3, wireless telecommunications facilities. Again, the state statutes. Part 3, copy and pasting in your telecommunications ordinance. Yeah, this is one I was really on the fence on about whether, hey, would you be likely to read it again here, or should I go ahead and dump it in an appendix? I don't know that there's any exact magic to that, but just since the state put it here, I went ahead and followed with your existing ordinance here, and then we're going to come in, and I think we're going to come in with the small cell things after this, right, Lisa?
Yeah.
Lisa, keep rolling. I think you can go down, yeah. Is that it? That's what I was looking for, small cell. So you kind of got two categories in your existing ordinance. And then historic preservation is part 4. We'll put your existing chapter 26 ordinance into the appendix. And Lisa and I still need a discussion about community appearance commission, whether we want to put design review board stuff here or whether that lands someplace else. But that's a fast tour. It's a summary of trying to execute what we talked about last meeting to make this a little easier to handle. So does anybody have any questions on that? No, that's fast.
I think we're good.
Okay. And I can go real quick here. Articles 10 through 14, this was even faster than I thought. Lisa, don't go too fast. All the way, I know we're at the witching hour. We'll go all the way up to blue so I can do it all. So I would consider all of these provisions fairly technical. And in almost every case, the state law as written is basically us with an exception or two here. So, I mean, I'm talking about the ordinance being just this half page for these 5 sections, okay? That if you ever have a development agreement, we'll follow the state statute. Building code enforcement, you'll follow the state statute, and we note practically in the 2 paragraphs how it works in Weddington, what Union County is responsible for, and that Union County does not issue building permits until the town issues its zoning permit. And likewise, Union County handles your certificates of occupancy, but they won't turn it loose until the town issues a certificate of compliance. So that those 2 paragraphs are tailored to how Weddington works today. I suppose that could change at some point, but the nuts and bolts of building standards is all per state statute. Article 12, housing code, set forth in the appendix. Article 13, additional authority, is sort of worthless for a UDO. It just, there's a laundry list of other things towns are allowed to do, but it doesn't really dictate anything. And judicial review are the rules of the game if anybody appeals or sues the town. So I felt good as it kind of came together that I think this is plenty. I don't think you all will, I mean, I guess I'd be surprised if you ever look at any of this in connection with the normal development reviews, and everything else in yellow in this is a copy of the state statute. So in a way, I've boiled down to half a page, Lisa, I don't know if you want to start rolling fast. We can see how many pages are in this document, but it's all the references and, basically cutting down what could be, I don't remember, the over-under is probably 50 pages down to half a page.
56.
How many?
56.
56. So folks, I've tried to listen. I may be the, us lawyers like to get paid by the word, and we're, supposed to, spend a lot of time on this, but I'm actually quite happy and really feel like I was really happy with our last meeting. And as I said at the beginning of this, to make the main thing, I feel pretty good about this, that we've zeroed in on your residential development, which is the main thing you all are likely to be working on. The CZ zoning is pretty front and center. And so if this all comes together right, you'll have a document that's pretty user-friendly. The front end of the ordinance is things you're likely to reference in your own meetings. And again, these appendixes have every bit they're going to be there. It's not like they're going to have any less legal significance. They're just going to be parked to the side to be used when you're reading it. And I guess my hope would be we will have very little chance of ever missing anything or cross references in the ordinance. So I know you all have seemed to be positive about less is more, and we just are continuing to try to implement that, but without backing off any substantive standards. So that's it.
Kevin, thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Hey, before I break, January meeting, what the next step in this, you all wanted a editorial review, and meaning everything in one place, cleaned up. I think we will be in position to do that by the end of January, but I would like to hold and let Lisa and I get a couple week running start on that next step. If what I said to Lisa, I want that to be ready where you all can actually make an affirmative recommendation, and that we have something that we can officially start the town council process without a likelihood of significant changes after that. I mean, if we have things that come up through the public process or the elected officials want to bring up, of course, we'll address them. But I'd like to have something that's really could be adopted by the time we not have you all give a recommendation on something that still needs a layer of work. So that may be that may take us. I just want to say it may be February.
I was about to say, it would probably be better to do that in February. I think Lisa's going to have her hands full in January.
I especially with the other item up, I wonder if that doesn't make sense.
I think I ruined her evening, and then in a couple of weeks in January for her. I apologize.
All right, understood.
All right, I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you for your help, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I was hoping that yellow section was all being deleted. Change color coding. I don't even know what yellow is. I hope it needs to stop.
All right, number 6, update from town planner report from November council meeting.
I have no update.
Wow.
Outstanding.
Next.
All right, board member comments. Walt?
No, I thought it was time well spent tonight.
Okay.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you. Ed?
Merry Christmas. Have
Jen?
a great holiday.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Nope.
Thank you, board. I appreciate your time. Normally, we get to our meeting a lot quicker. I think
This
it's
is
the
the
longest
first-
meeting I've ever overseen.
This is the first time.
I think you said a
Your
new record
record's
tonight,
been
Brad.
squashed.
This is a new record.
This
'cause
is
no-
a new record.
Yeah, normally Brad don't have meetings this long. I need a motion, please.
I'll
Make
make
a motion
it.
to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
2 hours, 46 minutes. This is by far the longest meeting.